Welcome back to the Lo-Fi Lounge. This is Chris LeRoy. We got films, we got reviews, we got music. We're going to play Lucky at the end of the show. The whole thing starts right now.
All right. How about if we do, we'll try Grace. I've got this guy on, and it's got a nice little, I think it'll go good with that. So,
Okay.
wanna try that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it. It was Grace that I was named on the day that I was born, and it's grace that's sure to lift me when I fly. It was grace that you gave me when I was cold outside, in the darkest night, when I lose my sight. God has grace enough to bring the morning light. In a world of temptation, watch me turn to seek your fire. For his praise and devotion I conspire. And the times when I grow weary and I'm walking on a wire. In the darkest night, when I lose my sight, God has grace enough to make the morning light. It was grace that I was named on the day that I was born, and it's grace that's sure to lift me when I fly. It's grace that you gave me despite my foolish pride. In my heart you poured forgiveness, and my eyes were open wide. With the grace of life, make the morning bright. God has grace enough to make the morning bright. Great morning bright. Great morning bright. Great.
I love it. It's always fun. I remember you told me it was actually written about a friend of yours' daughter
Oh yes,
and conversations that you'd had with him. It's
Yeah.
Mark Nemitz, who's
Mark
another
Nemitz.
local musician here.
yeah, good friend.
Yeah.
And his daughters, they're all his kids. They're very talented musicians.
Mhm.
His oldest daughter goes as, and there's, I think her stage name is like Georgia Grace. It's just there's something about the purity of her voice
Mhm.
that I was just thinking of her name, and the sound of your voice made me write this song. There's so many elements in the original album.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us play into it.
Mhm.
Little bits of guitar flying from about 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah, I remember I borrowed a B bender off of Fred
Oh.
Stewart for that.
Oh.
So you can kind of hear it.
You hear the
flying
B
in and
bender,
out,
and
yeah.
it's so beautiful.
God, when
and-
you first brought that one, it was just like, oh, the whole, which is an A minor seventh,
Yeah.
and then you throw that on there. It just really, and then the,
Yeah.
there's like a tension almost
The
with
climb
that
down,
chord,
yeah.
just where it just pauses and then it brings you into the chorus. It's
Yeah.
just, it was like, wow, this is crafted very, very well.
Yeah.
And on the backgrounds too, because I know Mark Nemitz played a really nice lead on it and
Yeah.
did some nice guitar fills and like a neck pickup kind of thing. And then Kelly McGuire, Ralph Torres, and I came in and we did the backgrounds
Oh.
on it. And Kelly kind of took his, like I say, he puts his producer's hat on,
Yeah.
and he just has nothing but fantastic ideas, and we were able to execute them pretty well against the track. So
yeah.
it's
That's
one of my favorites.
well, it's one of the magic things about I think the band is we have this really kind of cool cadre
Mhm.
of musicians who support each other. Like Kelly, really
Mhm.
good example. There's someone who what he knows about vocals is you could
Alone,
fill,
yeah,
you could
yeah.
fill a,
Yeah.
a stadium full, and just good ideas. Here's some backing vocals that really match the story of the song.
Mhm.
And music is it's a wonderful thing to enjoy as a fan, as a consumer, but it's really really fun to record. This song Grace, we were able to kind of grab a lot of these little nuances. I'm thinking
Mhm.
little great tidbits that all kind of swirl together that make that a really special song. It's special reasons for a very special person, and it's nice when they all fit together.
Yeah.
When it all
No,
comes together.
I agree. They don't always, sometimes you got to work at it and sometimes it comes to you. Cool. Well, let's take a break.
Yeah, love it.
All right, man. We'll
Thanks,
be
man.
back.
coming into it, I thought it would just be a history of Colton, and this is what happened. But it's really it was a little more bleak. But I mean, what was your choices in getting these people together? What were you thinking?
Well, it's a very good question. A lot of them were a lot older than me,
Mm-hmm.
so but it's a collective narrative for different voices from. Some of them were probably born, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, across that bandwidth. And the idea was to take an individual voice and make it part of a fabric that's being woven together
Mm-hmm.
and tell a larger picture. Like you said, well, Hub City, was I going to see a history of Colton? On the contrary, it's not a history of anything.
Right.
It's more of a dialogue, or you hear these voices and you hear certain discussions taking place
Mm-hmm.
in the course of it, and they'll be talking about, oh, this is a Driftwood Hotel that someone died of an overdose at, and not that anyone's ever going to go to the Driftwood Hotel, which I don't even know if it exists anymore,
I've never seen it.
but it's like a metaphor for the Driftwood Hotel in city in Kansas, city in
Mhm.
New Jersey, city in New Mexico.
And that's what struck me too, is it could be any city that's been kind of burned out by industrialization.
I learned Colton wasn't a bad place to grow up in. It was all right. I had my friends.
It was always insulated, and even to this day hasn't changed much. When you look around, here we are sitting in a spot we've sat in probably 1,000 times before, been in this area, and it hasn't changed. Things around us change. There's new buildings going up in other towns and whole new cities going up. But Colton, this could be 1969 or 1965.
You look at Dylan as to me, the ultimate trickster, and you always think,
Yeah.
is this something he's doing again? It's just like a big joke that only he's in on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people were like, okay, when are we going to stop with the crosses and the sermonizing?
Yeah.
I'm sure that might have happened for a couple months.
Sure.
Until people were like, wait a minute, this is really happening here. So
Yeah.
it reminds me of this, of artists that go through, with him especially, and the reason why he's so endearing to this day is he will master an art form, or he'll master a genre, and he'll just completely own it and then move on to something different. Right. So I think that's kind of what happened at the end of this, where he felt, that's as far as I can go.
This is what I've done with
this is what I've done, but I'm still this is still a part of me now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget this, because he's never really written off any era of his music. I mean, he's never really come out and said, I don't know what I was thinking when I did this album, like other people have done, but
No, that's a good point.
It's always a part of him.
Yeah, he doesn't trash it. He usually he always questions the people who dive so deep. Sorry, folks. Into his lyrics and say, what he always says about Grail Marcus. He goes, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
He's like making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know if I meant all that, but he's not judging. He's just saying, take the song for what it is. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It was a waltz. I'm going to play it as this thing. I'm going to play it as this thing, because even I feel free to change these lyrics.
Right.
I feel sure. So it's the bit of
Yeah.
the trickster in him, or well, I think it's the artist in him that just propels him forward. He says, I have to do this. I hope he still plays significantly. Every Grain of Sand.
Great song.
For me, it's going to be the top 5 Dylan songs, because what he takes on, the spirit in that song, his harmonica playing at the end of that song, it's all.
I had that on the other day because I was, for this assignment. I've been listening to this for the last week.
Yeah.
And that song made me stop what I was doing and just be like, oh, this is something going on here.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs did. I mean, just like the musicianship and the sentiment, and it's absolutely genuine.
Yeah.
You don't ever feel at one time, he's putting you on, like I said, but it's yeah, I mean, he's produced some very powerful music here that should be at least considered and not discounted from his overall.
Absolutely,
body
yeah.
of
Yeah.
work.
If people, just like the guy who bought the album but didn't take the wrap off it until he heard this thing, if you have skipped over this, or you're kind of letting your own personal prejudices keep you away from a true artist, you really got to reset. This is a great time. I'm talking to a lot of my artist friends, and we're all kind of thinking that. It's that as terrible as these times are, and that's just the pandemic, much less the bigger
Right.
pandemic, is racism, the problems that we have. But what a great challenging time for people to stop, reset, think who they are, think what they're about, and be prepared to be different.
I feel like I'm in a job interview. This light, it's. My biggest fault is that I work too hard and I'm always on time, which, it's obsessive, but, it drives people crazy, but I'm always there 5 minutes early. I'm ready to go. I usually stay a little late. It's tough, but it's me. Maybe I want you. At first, when I heard the acoustic demo that Chris sent, I didn't see a lot of possibilities. It had a rather awkward structure because he had played a riff and sung to it at the same time. And you could see how that riff supported what he was doing with the melody and lyrics. To me, I couldn't see how we were going to make that work. But after messing around for a while, I came up with something that I thought was different enough yet still fit. The lick could still be in there, that original riff that Chris had, but we were going to take it in a somewhat different direction. And ultimately, the song changed a lot and became one of my favorites. It was like an ugly duckling. I'll hear a chord progression that calls for something else, some counterpoint, and I'll try to find it. And sometimes I do. Like Love Forever is a good example of a bass part where it wasn't there, but it just somehow popped into my head because of the way the chords and the rhythm were arranged, that it needed something funky there. And it took me a while, and I don't think I got it totally perfect, but it's almost there. It's very close to what I was after. As a bass player, I'm not told to play things a certain way. Nobody else is told to play things a certain way. We somehow just work it out. And I guess we have the right group of people where that's possible. So thank you, Dangers. It's a fun band to play with. I recommend joining the Dangers.
Thanks for coming to our show. We'll see you next week. Oh, I have one more thing. 2, 3, 4. Well, I'm lucky for my fingers, a lucky bed to sleep, lucky thoughts that linger, lucky as I leave. Sometimes I zoom my mind to days
before we broke in two. But I'm lucky, so lucky for the times I spent with you. Now some folks call it destiny. They can't control our fate. But me, I don't believe that stuff. Then I'm luckier that way. Sometimes I spend my mind with days before we broke into. But I'm lucky, so lucky for the times I spent with you. What more could I ask for? What more could I do? What more could I ask for? I owe so much to you. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm lucky I'm still dreaming. Lucky to have cried. Even lucky for the bad luck. Just lucky to have tried. Sometimes I turn my mind to days before we broke into. And I'm lucky, so lucky for the times I spend with you. For the times I spend with you. Ooh. We're lucky, lucky, lucky. We're lucky, lucky, lucky.